give us most of our portage fees, service charges, and tips. But I do know that my colleagues at other hotels never see their gratuities. I've had to get several second jobs to make ends meet on minimum wage, and I wonder how many other employees at other hotels survive when the corporations are keeping their service charges and tips. When businesses is really booming, the hotels could take thousands of dollars away from their employees through kept service charges. This is money that could be spent on rent, education, children's clothes and food at local restaurants and local businesses. Hotels aren't just taking money out of the employees' pockets, they're taking it out of SeaTac. I support the Good Jobs initiative because it will make SeaTac a better place to work and live.
Thank you, sir. Again, please respect the no applause. Thank you. Evelyn Orlano, followed by Socrates Bravo. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. My name is Evelyn. I work for FSS at SeaTac Airport. I check bags for all international airlines. I've been there for 2 years, but it's still minimum wage. I work 8 hours, but I'm told to put down for 7 hours because if there's no flight, we have to stay clock out for lunch until the next flight. I used to make minimum wage for 32 hours, but under the new manager, I only work 3 days. We trained new people. The manager said we need to share. So now I'm paid minimum wage for 21 hours. So I have a second job at the airport, is still minimum wage for Olympic Security Incorporated. Neither job has give us benefits. I don't have paid sick leave. If I have an emergency, I have to take unpaid off. If I take too much time off, I'll get fired. My husband and I are from the Philippines. We moved here for greener pasture, better living, and we have 2 adult children. We are trying to have a better life. My husband works cleaning rooms and at the downtown Westin Hotel. Even though he's old enough to retire, he keeps working so we can have health care. If my husband retires or if something's happened, I won't get for my pills for my tired condition. That's why my hair is losing. When the Good Jobs Initiative passes, it will be a big deal for me. I could save money for my retirement. I could take care of my own health. I could have time to go to the doctor. I live in Tukwila, close to SeaTac, and this will be good for everyone in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, no applause. I hate to keep reminding you that there's no applause here, so please don't make me remind you again. Socrates, followed by Vicky Lockwood. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. My name is Socrates Bravo, and I work for Menzies Aviation. I've been there for 2 years. A ramp agent is someone who loads and unloads luggage and cargo from the aircraft. We have a contract with Alaska Airlines. I moved to SeaTac because it's close and convenient to work. I would pretty much be. Like I said, I live at SeaTac with another roommate who also works at the airport. I would like to live by myself, but since rent is expensive, I wouldn't be able to afford it. So I had no way to. So I had to move with the roommate. I have a daughter, and she's 9 months. She's 9 months old. Working at the airport for Menzies, we have no sick pay leave. So if my daughter was to get sick, I can afford to miss a day of work. I want her to have a better life. The only reason I'm able to make ends meet is because I'm working overtime. I have important expenses. I want to support and take care of my daughter. When the Good Job Initiative passes, if my daughter gets sick, I don't have to take unpaid leave to take her to a doctor. Right now, I couldn't afford to take more than a day off to help her. When the Good Job Initiative passes, I won't have to work so much overtime. I'll have time to spend with my daughter. I'll be a better dad. When the Good Job Initiative passes, myself, along with my coworkers, will be able to go out to local restaurants and spend money there. I'm sure that out of the 10 of you guys are able to attend to the fine dining restaurant 13 Coins. And when the initiative passes, and when I make $15 an hour, the first paycheck I'll go to a fine dining restaurant and be able to pay a $20 meal, a $20 dessert. Because I'm pretty sure of all my coworkers, none of us are able to afford that, unlike you guys. So thank you. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Vicki Lockwood, followed by Kathleen Brave.
Thank you. Vicki Lockwood, SeaTac. I would like everyone to know that I am not anti-union. In fact, I was a shop steward for a Teamsters union and also an AFL-CIO union. My father had the oldest IBEW electrical card in the county when he passed. I was raised in a union family. In fact, I spent all afternoon at the Plumbers and Pipe Fitters Local 32 training session this afternoon. I'm not anti-union, but I'm anti-giveaway. And people need to acquire education and skills to make themselves worth more money. Council, I'm very concerned about the unintended consequences of this law. It suggests that some people will get a raise and that nobody will pay. We know better than that. The truth is, this law will hurt businesses and residents alike. Businesses will have to pay more for people. Then they will have to raise their prices. People, which by the way includes those of us not making $15 an hour, will pay more for services. There will be fewer jobs, so taxpayers will shoulder the burden to help those newly unemployed. In addition, this initiative will cost our city taxpayers to enforce it. The downward spiral seems pretty simple to me. I ask you, city staff, just as Council Member Forschler asked you at our last council meeting, how much will this
If you
initiative
could address your
cost us?
comments to the council, not to the staff, please.
Thank you. Why do you refuse to tell voters what they are really voting on? Responsible voting adults know there's no such thing as a free lunch. Whatever it costs, it will mean less services and more taxes for SeaTac citizens and businesses. Furthermore, at the last council meeting, our city attorney said that according to this initiative, the city may take action against employers. Do you really think that that wouldn't cost anything? Would the city have a law on the books and not enforce it? Again, that sounds like something for nothing and fuzzy government. City government needs to get honest with the SeaTac voters and tell us what this law is really about. Thank you.
Kathleen Brave, followed by Dick Jordan.
Hi, and thank you. My name is Kathy Brave. I'm a 41-year resident of McMicken Heights and a 46-plus-year resident of Washington State. I am still puzzled at the seemingly intelligent people that actually think that this is going to work and is not going to hurt the city, because I think it will. We already have the highest minimum wage in the country, and the fact remains that the states with the lowest minimum wage have the lowest unemployment. And I'm appalled that we're expected to vote on something that the city can't even tell us what it's going to cost to monitor. And I remember, as maybe some of you closer to my age do, that at one time there was no minimum wages. As a matter of fact, there are states that still don't have a minimum wage. And you worked for what an employer was willing to give you, and you were happy to have a job. I once worked for wages, for tips only. I didn't get any wages, and that was common. When we left South Dakota, thank God we left South Dakota, my husband was making $1 an hour as a mechanic, and he was a Native American with an 8th grade education, and I can tell you, you do not want to be a Native American in South Dakota. We've never regretted that. When we got out here, he still worked as a mechanic, and we still struggled. We had 4 little kids, including a daughter we had just adopted. And 3 years later, one of the fellows who came into the shop said, "I like the way you work. I want you to come to work for me." So he went to work at Associated Grocers, where he stayed for 22 years until he died 22 years ago at the age of 50. And even though it was a better job and we had benefits for the first time in our married life, we still struggled, and many times he worked 2 jobs. He did what he had to do to support his family. And eventually, when the kids were older, I got a job at Coast to Coast Hardware, where I started out at minimum wage. But I was really good at what I did, so I got constant raises because I did a really good job and I had a decent education. So I don't think at any point did either my husband or I say, I don't think I'm getting paid enough. I need to ask for more money. It never would have worked anyway. They would have laughed at us and shown us the door. So my Willie died 22 years ago, and I still struggle on Social Security and a small pension. I would love to make $15 an hour. I'm not getting close to that, okay? And I never have, and I'm 72 years old and still struggling. And many seniors on a fixed income are struggling. Unfortunately, we can't tell Social Security, gee, I'm not making enough money. I'd kind of like to have a little more so I could live a little bit better. Now we have many, and not all, I'm not talking about all of you, but many unskilled, uneducated people, and many who obviously weren't born in this country who think they deserve more than... You weren't, sorry.
Let's please respect her right to
Sorry.
speak.
Many who weren't born in this country and are uneducated and unskilled, who think they deserve more than I do, or my neighbors do. My dad's family came over on the Mayflower.
If you could summarize, please.
Huh?
Your time's up. If you could summarize,
Oh,
please.
okay. My dad's family came on the Mayflower. No one helped them. My mom's family came from Switzerland with no help. My mother-in-law raised 5 children with no help whatsoever, no food stamps, no low income. She worked 2 jobs. So I just feel that this goes way too far, and I think in the long run you're all going to be really disappointed when you lose your jobs or get laid off, because all this is going to do is line the pockets of union workers. Thank you.
Dick Jordan, followed by Doris Kassan. Again, let's please respect the no applause. Thank you. Dick Jordan, followed by Doris Kassan. Good evening, sir.
Dick Jordan here, and I'm a 60-year resident of the city of SeaTac. Hey, what I'd like to know is how many people here live in the city of SeaTac? 10%? 15%?
Actually, if you could address your comments to the council, not the audience, please.
But I'd like to know. See how many's raising their hands.
Okay.
But anyways, when the slowdown came, I was working for Rainier Glass. We were off during the week. We worked 1 day, 2 days. Hey, one check was $44, and I took that home, and the wife raised the roof. The next check was $22, and she did the same thing. And I said, furthermore, I've quit my job. And then she says, what in the world are you thinking of? And I says, if I can't make $22 a day, I'll be glad to go back to the same place I worked. I'll be a lot better employee. But today it's a tough go. This $15 an hour is going to put an awful lot of people out of work. It's going to make it 3 times as hard for everybody else. Hard on the businesses, and I hope that the people of SeaTac will really give this a thought and vote it down. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Doris Kassan, followed by Earl Gibson.
Good evening, Mayor Anderson, council persons. My remarks this evening are very similar to the remarks I made last week at the town hall meeting. I repeat these comments for the benefit of citizens who were unable to attend and for those citizens who may be watching on CS TV. Also, most of you out there in SeaTac land did not have the benefit of watching or hearing the unquestionable influence displayed by outside interest groups toward the staff and council of the city of SeaTac regarding this initiative. And it would appear that the same governing body decides which law is enforced and which law is not enforced. This initiative was not devised by citizens of SeaTac, but outside interest groups. Occupy Seattle, United 8. We see them back there. The idea that the initiative is for the benefit of SeaTac residences is not a fair statement. Most of all the employees in SeaTac do not live in SeaTac. SeaTac taxpayers will pay for administrating an ordinance without the benefits. What seems really ironic about this ordinance, I cannot imagine how our company survived doing business in the city of SeaTac for more than 45 years without the city telling us how we should operate. 45 years ago, there wasn't a city of SeaTac. But I do remember a number of your high school and college-age students working with us, many of them using our scholarship program to attend local colleges, some choosing other careers, or, as we are so proud, becoming the cornerstone of our company today. We did not need the city manager to tell us how to hire, or how to hire our people, or who to hire, or how to audit our records. We did not need the city attorney to investigate for us to assume guilt for undetermined infractions. And I'm sure that all these undetermined details will follow. The original SeaTac planners, however, wished to retain tax dollars in the community and desired to have more control of the fire and police departments in order to provide a more safe environment. The intent was never to tell businesses how to operate. So I repeat my statement on last Tuesday evening. What is the role of the city? So if I were to take a test to become a citizen and reviewed the questions and answers that might be on the test, I would learn cities provide fire and police protection, provide schooling and education, and regulate zoning and land use.
If you could please summarize.
Okay, most of the people who wish to become an American citizen is because of an overreaching government in their native country. So once again, I should say, should not SeaTac staff be focused on creating an environment whereby all the citizens feel safe to work and play and be educated, and the city focused on creating an environment whereby businesses, employers, and employees can prosper and expand.
Thank you very much. Again, please respect the applause. Earl Gibson, followed by Don Kruger.
Earl Gibson, SeaTac. Okay, some of you weren't here for the study session, and our city is going to go through a process improvement. Well, just recently, I also found out that one of our council members and one of our city employees were found guilty by the Public Disclosure Commission of campaign violations from 2009.
We're speaking to the initiative today.
Yeah,
Could you address
I'm
that,
getting
please?
to that. I'm going to get exactly to that.
Okay, if you could
Why
restrict it to that, please.
Yes. Normally, I got it under control. So, what I'm asking now in this initiative, we want, and I've been asking for, in our process improvement, how about a code of ethics? Wouldn't that be something? The way this initiative is written, that here we're going to have our city staff administering a union, basically, and we can't even do the things that we're supposed to. And I've been asking for that code of ethics a long time, and that should be part of the process improvement. Now, as far as the initiative, we're going to pay, what, $15 an hour to people. Well, you know, they're going to lay off people. So some people will make $15 an hour. The other ones, your fellow employees, will be thrown under the bus. And we'll have more people who are in need public assistance. I mean, this is economics. This is not rocket science. So, and it's a shame that it's gotten this far with outside interests influencing the whole thing. It is not government's job to take care of your every need and wipe your whatever. Government should be, if you want a union, there's no problem. Go to your employers, form a union. That's the way it's done. But this is not the government's responsibility. Thank you.
Don Kruger, followed by Perry Wall.
Hello.
Good evening, sir.
Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Don Kruger. I'm a worker for Menzies.
Right up against the mic. There you go.
I'm working for Menzies Aviation at the airport in the warehouse. I'm 60 years old now, and working for Menzies, I'm getting ready to leave because it is a $10 an hour job with no foreseeable raise anywhere in the future for any of the employees. We work extremely hard in the warehouse. We're lifting anywhere from 1 kilometer of freight up to and including 50 kilometers. We're talking about 100 pounds. We are continually moving, offloading from planes, putting onto trucks to ship to other places, or taking off the trucks and building up pallets to put onto planes to move. Menzies is a multi-million-dollar multinational corporation. There have been people there for 4 years that are still making $10 an hour. It's not a good life. I'm leaving, and I will probably be moving out of the area, which is taking my tax dollars out of here, because right now I can't afford to go to Starbucks and buy a cup of coffee. I can't afford to go to McDonald's and buy lunch. It's just not feasible. Not with the way the rents are, not with the cost of gasoline, not with the cost of food. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Perry Wall, followed by Mike West. Perry? There you are.
Momentarily blocked. Mayor, Council, thank you for seeing me. When this proposal first came out, my gut reaction was, is this April 1st? Is this a joke? I couldn't believe what I was reading. In a time when everybody wants less government in their lives, and especially in their businesses, this proposal is asking for more. It's asking for much more. It's asking for a government that controls how we do business, who we hire, and how much we're going to pay our people. Not only that, it's a discriminating and target specific businesses. It doesn't go after all the businesses in SeaTac, it just goes after the hospitality industry. But putting that aside, this proposal will change the way we do business in the hospitality industry. For instance, it will have a dramatic impact on how I will be doing business next year if it passes. I've done preliminary budgeting, and I can tell you right now that this proposal is in fact a job-killing initiative. I will have to change my entire way of how I operate in order to maintain a profitable atmosphere at my business. I will most likely discontinue some of the services I now provide and reduce staffing in other departments that will result in the loss of approximately 20 to 25 jobs this winter. I know that the supporters of this proposal think that what they have is a good idea, but trust me when I tell you, I strongly believe this will cause more unintentional harm to those than it was intended to help. Companies may and will raise their standards of hiring to the point that graduates from local community colleges, as well as more experienced, seasoned employees, will be considered for a position long before an entry-level, new-to-the-jobs market or limited skills young adult will be given an opportunity. That is the harsh facts of business. Washington State currently has the highest minimum wage in the United States, and they have increased it every year based on a cost of living index. Minimum wage is just that. It's a starting wage, where young, inexperienced people can get their first job and move up in the world by getting a better job or getting promoted and learning new and valuable skills to increase their income. Most of these jobs are not meant as career jobs, and they're not meant as long-term. But this new minimum wage will change all that and will attract experienced workers from as far away as Bellevue, Tacoma, and Seattle and surrounding cities. I mean, for $15 an hour, it's going to open up our labor pool here quite a bit. I trust that this community will think before considering this proposal and its true nature and read it thoroughly through and understand what exactly it is and what it means. Thank you very much.
Mike West, followed by Roger McCracken.
My name is Michael J. West, and I live at 18047 Military Road South in the city of SeaTac. I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council, for affording me this opportunity to speak to you regarding the minimum wage ordinance. I started my own small business along with my wife, and we operated it just across the border in Tukwila for 40 years. During that time, we always employed between 6 to 10 people. So I have a full understanding of what it means to be competitive. Legislating a wage increase to anybody is a bad idea because, number one, that shouldn't be the role of local government. That's between labor and the employer. Number two, it's artificial and based on nothing except someone wants more wages. This didn't work in the Soviet Union, Detroit, and it won't work here. Three, it's a job killer. Employers that can will stay below the minimums in this ordinance, laying off people to get below the minimum. The employers that can't get to the minimum will be forced to cut labor by other means, closing their restaurants, outsourcing laundry to try to be competitive with smaller surrounding businesses and businesses in adjacent cities unaffected by this ordinance. 4, local entry level employees, our kids, will have to go elsewhere for work because any employer forced to pay a minimum of $15 in wages is going to hire the most experienced, well-educated, most fluent worker they can. Certainly not a typical entry-level worker. This ordinance hurts the very people it purports to help. And 5, with the very real added expense to administer this ordinance's work rules and the potential for reduced income to the city due to falling business in SeaTac and therefore reduced tax revenue, it's realistic to believe that taxes will have to go up for residents to maintain current service levels. For these reasons, I urge the voters to reject this bad idea. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Roger McCracken, followed by Scott Ostrander.
Good evening. Roger McCracken. I'm speaking tonight not only as a local, not multinational business, but also as a very concerned citizen in this city of SeaTac. As you know, I've volunteered and given a lot of my time to help develop this city into what it is. And there are consequences to this initiative that could be catastrophic to both the businesses and the residents, as well as employees. Putting aside all the questions of legality and impacts and what's the economic engine of our city, hospitality, and even the negative consequences to my own business. I'm not going to talk about those. I want to focus on something that seems to be kind of deep, dark secret in this initiative. What's it going to do to the cost of this city to enforce these new responsibilities? I need to repeat that. What's it going to do to the cost of this city to enforce these new responsibilities? Common sense tells us that we can't take on new responsibilities and not have to reduce some other city services. This is a very complicated law that's being asked to be passed. It would require painstaking record keeping and require that the city police dozens, if not all, of the SeaTac businesses to ensure that they comply with the whole new set of rules. The city would have to make up some of these rules to be able to enforce these regulations. They require that businesses keep special records of over 6,000 employees. We heard that tonight, 6,900. Then they'd have to hire accountants to audit all those records. And if some of the businesses didn't do the right thing, take them to court and enforce these new rules. City government is going to have to increase staff just to protect these initiative rights. We checked with the parking operators. That's my business, parking. And I asked about how many people are registered in the city of SeaTac out of your employ. We have about 150 employees. There are 14 in our business that live in the city of SeaTac. That was pretty consistent throughout the parking industry. And based on a hand raising tonight, we saw 10 to 15% of citizens that are going to be affected. The initiative grants free legal services to all these entitled employees by putting the city in charge of enforcing any complaint that comes to the city. The cost may be difficult to estimate now, as Mary told us, but common sense tells us that these costs are going to be grave. We have...
If you could summarize, Mr. McCracken.
Sure. That's going to force this city to be taking action on the 90% of the employees that don't live in this city. You're going to have to protect all of those employees with city dollars, and that's going to increase taxes, especially in a declining environment that we're experiencing right now. I'd strongly urge the voters to consider these questions when it comes to the voting poll. How are we going to pay for it? Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Scott Ostrander, followed by Louise Strander.
My name is Scott Ostrander. I'm the general manager of Cedarbrook Lodge, a very small business, one of the smallest hotels in SeaTac, and not a multinational large corporation. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and honorable council members. I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. Before I talk about what I want to talk about, I want to acknowledge two groups of people real quick. First of all, Pastor Jan, I don't know where she's at, but God bless you for your efforts. You do a great job. You and I were two of four people that were honored by the Washington Association of School Administrators for giving back to the community. My very small business gave away 40% of its profits last year, $240,000, back into the SeaTac community directly, and I appreciate what you do. To all the people that are here tonight that are proponents of this initiative is very, very well intended. But it's very misinformed. And I want you to walk down with me for a second. Just walk with me as I talk for a second. As I said, I'm a small business employer. I have 117 employees. 92 of those employees are hourly employees. I do not pay one of them minimum wage. They all get 2 meals a day, complimentary. They've got great benefits. 51 of these 92 hourly employees are entry-level positions, all with possibilities of promotion. This initiative will be grave to a small business. I'm from Phoenix, Arizona, a very seasonal hotel market, where you hire people and you lay people off every season, but people know that, they expect it. And I'm shaking here tonight because I'm going to be forced to lay people off for something that is not their fault. Something that they have no control over. I'm going to take away their livelihood. God, that hurts. It really, really hurts. There's many people in the audience. You've got tags on to say, good jobs make SeaTac better. You're absolutely right, and that's what I do as a small business employer. Try to make jobs better, try to make SeaTac better. Good jobs, decent jobs, mediocre jobs are better than no jobs, which is what I'm going to be forced with come January 1st, which is eliminating jobs, reducing hours. And as soon as hours are reduced, benefits are reduced. I forgot to mention, I'm also a voter in SeaTac. And I was a proud citizen of SeaTac, a very young city, a city with great promise and opportunity. And this initiative will destroy this community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Where are we? We are at Louise Strander, followed by Jonathan Grant. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Hello, my name is Louise Strander, and I'm the chair of the Board of Directors of the Southwest King County Chamber of Commerce. The Southwest King County Chamber of Commerce is a participating member of Common Sense SeaTac. We are opposed to this initiative because it will hurt not only the economy, but also the city of SeaTac. I am also a real estate manager and property owner in Tukwila. The Southwest King County Chamber of Commerce is a regional chamber of commerce and is composed of the city of SeaTac, Tukwila, Burien, and Des Moines. The chamber has 354 business members, of which 52 are active SeaTac businesses. We want the voters to understand the unintended consequences of this initiative. These selective pay and benefit mandates will disrupt all businesses in SeaTac, regardless of their industry or size. Then, as businesses have to raise prices to cover these drastic wage and benefit increases, they also risk losing customers. This initiative would set off a negative spiral on the whole SeaTac economy and ultimately on tax revenues to the city. Either city services will be cut or taxes will be raised. The Southwest King County Chamber of Commerce is proud to be a member of Common Sense SeaTac, and we urge all businesses and citizens to study this initiative. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you very much. Jonathan Grant, followed by Max Nelson.
Good evening, council members. My name is Jonathan Grant. I'm the executive director of the Tenants Union of Washington State, and I'm urging the City Council to fully adopt the Good Jobs Initiative. The Tenants Union receives hundreds of calls from SeaTac tenants, many of whom are low-wage workers and are struggling to make ends meet and pay the rent. People who are hardworking should not have to struggle simply to afford their homes. According to a state-by-state study by the National Low-Income Housing Coalition, in order to afford an average two-bedroom apartment, when earning minimum wage, you would have to work 81 hours a week. I'll say that again. At minimum, to afford a home, you must work 81 hours a week at minimum wage. Rents continue to rise, and workers' wages continue to stay flat, and something has got to give. Taxpayers should not have to subsidize the basic needs of working people when the companies who employ them have ample profits. Today, the City Council can decide that workers get paid a fair wage to afford their homes. Please pass the Good Jobs Initiative. It is good for SeaTac. It brings wages up to realistic standards given the skyrocketing costs of our region. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Max Nelson, followed by Judy Volkers. Good evening.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Max Nelson. I'm the Labor Policy Analyst at the Freedom Foundation in Olympia. Just last fall, voters in Long Beach, California approved a measure requiring hotels with more than 100 rooms to pay employees a $13 minimum wage. In response, hotels reduced the number of available rooms and laid off staff. At one large hotel, rooms were reduced from 174 to 99, and 75 employees lost their jobs. Though the intent behind minimum wage laws may be good, the weight of academic research on the issue indicates that minimum wages increase unemployment for the very workers they are intended to help. In 2006, a comprehensive review of over 100 recent minimum wage studies found that 2/3 confirmed the traditional understanding that increasing the minimum wage also increases unemployment among low-skilled workers. 85% of the most rigorous studies reach this conclusion. While some workers will see their wages rise and some may be lifted over the poverty threshold, the least skilled workers lose their jobs entirely, negating any decreases in poverty. Research from the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland indicates that the minimum wage hikes can actually increase poverty. In this case, the initiative would increase the minimum wage in SeaTac by an unprecedented 63% and create the highest cash minimum wage in the country. Two examples help put the magnitude of this increase in perspective. First, in 2004, the state of New York increased the minimum wage by about 39%. As a result, employment among less educated 16 to 29-year-olds fell by over 20%. The second example occurred in the U.S. Protectorate of American Samoa. Until recently, American Samoa had a much lower minimum wage than the continental United States. In 2007, however, Congress decided to increase American Samoa's minimum wage in yearly increments. After 3 50-cent increases, the Government Accountability Office reported in 2011 that employment in American Samoa fell by 19% from 2008 to 2009. The governor of American Samoa criticized the GAO report for not capturing the full extent of the damage caused by the minimum wage mandate. In 2011, he pleaded with Congress to stop the wage increases, stating, quote, "We are watching our economy burn down." The minimum wage hike experienced by American Samoa was 46% over 3 years. The minimum wage hike proposed for SeaTac is 63% in 1 year. Arguments that living wages help stimulate the economy lack any empirical foundation unless decreased employment, higher prices, and discouraged economic development are counted as economic stimulus. Though addressing poverty is a very worthy goal, a living wage is not the solution. I have a more detailed copy of my report at the back table if anybody's interested. Thank you.
Judy Volkers, followed by Gordon Wilson. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Judy Volkers, and I live on 176th in SeaTac. I want to comment on the initiative because I believe that the facts are really pretty clear. There are more than 6,000 low-wage workers currently employed in and around SeaTac Airport in jobs that are essential support for operations there. These are baggage handlers, passenger service workers, hotel workers, food service workers, just to name a few. They receive minimum wage, currently $9.19 an hour, which computes to $367.60, less deductions and taxes, for a 40-hour week, if they ever get to work 40 hours in a week. It is common practice that employees are hired only part-time, and if extra hours are needed, new temporary employees are often hired rather than increase the hours of the permanent staff. Many staff are just scheduled to work 2 or 3 days a week. 20 hours a week at $9.19 an hour computes to only $183.80 a week before taxes and deductions. Many of these workers are employed in companies that contract for services with airlines or the airport. If the contractor changes, the current employees are out of a job and have to reapply for the same job that they may have been doing for several years. However, they have lost any sense of seniority that they might have had. Hotels around SeaTac often schedule banquets, seminars, conferences, etc. in their facilities. A gratuity or service charge is routinely added to the total bill. However, that gratuity or service charge rarely gets to the employees who actually worked on that. Then there's the issue of sick pay and health care benefits. And the health care benefits aren't even addressed in this initiative, much to my chagrin. Most of these employees do not receive either, which means that they often go to work sick or risk losing their jobs. Since they mostly work directly with large numbers of people every day, they can easily spread their illnesses to other workers and to the general public. As citizens of SeaTac, we can sit back and proclaim this doesn't affect us, that many of these employees aren't actually SeaTac residents, that unions just want to beef up their numbers, that businesses will leave if wages increase, that the city of SeaTac itself receives much of its revenue from airport operations, so why rock the boat? But can we realistically rationalize and do this? These are a group of people fellow human beings who are barely subsisting because they're depending on $9.19 an hour to live, while corporate leaders are making millions. Paying a living wage of $15 an hour is still only $600 for a 40-hour week. But remember, a lot of employees don't get to work 40 hours a week.
If you could summarize, please.
Raising this could go a long way by helping to improve the lives and the lives of their families. Since most of the workers do live in communities close by the airport, by supporting this initiative, we can help all the communities in South King County, not just SeaTac, improve the standard of living of our residents. I believe we should support this initiative because it is the right thing to do.
Thank you. Gordon Wilson, followed by Kashama Savant. Gordon, right? Good evening, sir.
Good evening, members of the council. My name is Gordon Wilson. Just so everybody knows, I just want to make sure that everybody knows I do not live in SeaTac. I live in Tacoma. I do, even though I live elsewhere, I still have a vested interest in this getting passed, and that is the fact that I have a 3-year-old daughter and a son on the way. Yes, right now we're in Tacoma, but who's to say where they're going to live down the road? So as a father, I'm here saying that for you to pass it. If anything, at the very least, all I ask is, I don't know, how each of you operate, but I'm going to ask you tonight that when you go home, regardless of your thoughts on this, regardless of how it gets voted, go home, take your work home with you, spend 20 minutes Googling the different studies that people were brought up that's against it. You'll find out that the bulk of those studies are actually done by big business, or big business paid for it, or whatever. You'll find out that most of these studies are in fact baseless, and they're not really factual because they're geared towards the big business. I found this out in other instances. Right now I'm a proponent of Tacoma sick pay, and I've done other things in the past. I'm willing to bet that the same thing will happen here. If I go home and spend 20 minutes on the computer, I can find enough evidence that can back this up, that will debunk all the arguments that you're hearing tonight. Is it going to negatively impact a small percentage? Yes, because that happens. If we look at sick pay down in San Francisco, that happened. However, the negative impact on the 2011 study was something like 5–6%. It was very, very small. As far as how they paid for it, it didn't cost any more for any company to sit there and have to do this, and for the city to have to sit there and enforce it. From 2007, when it got passed, to 2011, they only had, I believe it was 765 complaints saying that people weren't following it. I think this is something that needs to happen. And like I said, I just ask that each of you go home tonight and do your own research, please. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Kashama Savant, followed by Chami Jo Rowe.
My brothers and sisters, I'm Kshama Sawant. I'm a member of Socialist Alternative, and I'm a rank-and-file member of the American Federation of Teachers, Local 1789, and I'm speaking in personal capacity today. I live in Seattle, and it's my honor and privilege to be standing with my fellow workers and the labor movement who have launched this initiative process for a $15 an hour minimum wage in SeaTac. I'm also an economist who has studied minimum wage issues in great detail, and I can confirm resoundingly that all these stories about how minimum wage increase will lead to inflation, will lead to downward spiral in the economy, will lead to an increased unemployment, will crush small businesses, these are all complete and utter myths. There is no empirical evidence to indicate this. In fact, there is very strong empirical evidence and theoretical evidence to show that economies thrive and flourish if working people under capitalism actually have money to spend, and that's what's crushing small businesses, people not having enough money to spend. And if small businesses are going to be negatively affected, then I have a solution for that too. We should tax big corporations to subsidize small businesses so that they can pay their workers a fair wage. There is no justification for any hard worker to be paid less than $15 an hour today. Many have talked about how this is the highest minimum wage in the country, in this state, and I can tell you that this is not evidence of lavishness of wage in Washington, but it is evidence of how abysmal wages are in the rest of the country. And just very quickly, the other gentleman, he stated some evidence from employment decrease in American Samoa. I have not looked at this evidence, but I would urge you to look at the dates. He's stating evidence from 2008 to 2009. That's when the massive economic crisis and financial collapse happened. Maybe that had a little something to do with that. Working people in Seattle are in solidarity with the SeaTac workers and the labor movement here. The SeaTac labor movement is showing what real leadership in the interest of working people looks like. This is the leadership that is almost entirely missing, not only in SeaTac, but also in Seattle and statewide and nationally. Most politicians are serving the interests of the wealthy and defending the obscene profits of big business executives and leaving the rest to struggle at best for a life of low-income financial instability and at worst, outright poverty. Life is unaffordable for the majority of people everywhere. And at the same time, worker productivity has skyrocketed and the profits of big corporations have surged. The rich are getting richer, and they are the ones who are getting the free lunch. They are the ones who are the freeloaders. And if you want to talk about a downward spiral, this is the downward spiral. The majority not getting wages even to pay, enough even to pay their rent, and this is what is the race to the bottom. And as the SeaTac workers have shown, and as the Seattle Paid Sick Leave Initiative showed, we as working people need to fight for our own interests. We cannot rely on corporate politicians. We need to have our own grassroots political representation, and people of all ethnicities need to come together, independent of the two big business parties, to fight for our own interests. Thank you.
Chami Jo Rowe, followed by Tyler Henderson.
Honorable Mayor, council members, and distinguished guests, my name is Chami Rowe, and I represent the Korean American Hotel Association as its secretary. The SeaTac initiative is bad for business and bad for the community. Yes, some of the hotel employees will get paid more, but many will lose their jobs as a result of this initiative. Hotels generally operate on a slim margin of profit. The hotels in SeaTac have been slimmer margins because of the fierce competition among the hotels in this city and the neighboring cities. If this initiative becomes the law, the SeaTac hotels will be forced to raise their room rates, and we will see more visitors going to the other cities with lower rates. Fewer heads in the beds will mean less sales tax revenue for the city. Fewer visitors will hurt the local restaurants also. Each SeaTac hotel affected by this initiative will have to reduce the number of employees to cut costs. Some may even go bankrupt. The hotels with fewer than 100 rooms would also gain a distinct competitive advantage over the ones with more than 100 rooms. Is this fair? The business at the hotels in the neighboring cities will improve at the expense of the SeaTac hotels. Is this fair? Increasing the minimum wage to $15 may sound tempting to certain people, but it will lead to a higher unemployment and less tax revenue for the city. Less tax revenue means less city service for the people of SeaTac. This is bad law all around. Please vote no. Thank you.
Tyler Henderson, followed by Jonathan Forschler.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm originally from Alabama, and I heard all the good things about Washington, and it is true the weather is much better and the cherries are great. But I'm not here to talk about that. This wage increase to $15 an hour would not only help the economy by injecting much-needed funds into it, but it would also have a great impact on public morale. I would actually like to address some of the statements that I heard during this speech, individuals that were opposing the initiative. I heard some people say that people need to acquire more education and skills in order to make this kind of money, in order to make this lavish amount, which is $15 an hour. Well, what money are they going to use to buy this education, which is also going up in price, by the way? I'm sure many people in here know that. And it doesn't come down to businesses having to pay more. It comes down to CEO bonuses having to be less. Things are different now than they were 20 years ago. They're different now than they were 30 years ago. Things change. It is the natural evolution of society. The minimum wage that may have been all right 30 years ago is not what's all right now. So I'm here to ask you, City Council, who do you work for? Do you work for us, the electorate, or do you work for big business? It's time to take the fight to the greedy big businesses. It's either that or continue to take the fight to the working class. And the woman that said that states with no minimum wage have the lowest unemployment, well, I am here as a living testament to say that that is absolutely not true. I'm from Alabama. Our minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. Our unemployment is 7.9%. Here in Washington, in Seattle and SeaTac,